Yeah, we're about 3 minutes in, so let's do this. I'm so glad you all are here, and to many of you, welcome back. I'm Andrew Childers, a market manager at Steelhead Productions. Steelhead is a live and virtual event marketing company that helps brands connect their customers both face-to-face and digitally. And you are joining us for our third of 5 enlightening and informative sessions that we've got that are centered on micro and macro trends to help you pivot into this newly emerging digital marketing world that we've got. I'd say digital and beyond, this marketing world that's sort of brand new and changing from day to day. We have some fantastic talent on our panel today that's going to talk to us about the trend of sensory deprivation. And we're saying it's sensory deprivation with an optimistic twist. So in a moment, I'll introduce the panel and they can talk to you quite a bit more about that. First, let me back up one last time to say, we welcome your questions. So if you hover your cursor over the lower middle part of your screen, you'll find both the chat box and the Q&A box. Please, at any point, feel free to pop in a question whenever it comes to mind. And don't worry, you're not going to be interrupting the panelists. Liz and I will be collecting those questions and holding them for the end. So go ahead and pop the questions in whenever they come to you. Also, the chat feature is available to you. Feel free to interject. We want to hear from you, and we do comment back. So it won't go, on as I say, on deaf ears or on blind eyes. Now, with that all said, let me tell you about the amazing talent we have here, and I'll just jump right to who's at the helm, and he'll introduce the rest. That would be our Chief Design Officer, Tom Frisbee. He's a well-known change agent with well over 20 years experience in our industry. He's led global teams and created some very high-profile events for some of the world's most iconic brands. I mean, automotive, healthcare, construction, you name it, if it's a big brand, and many wonderful small ones, Tom's worked on it and brought something creative and wonderful to life for them. So I should also mention he is a celebrated speaker and faculty member of both HCEA and Exhibitor Live. So it is with pleasure that I turn it over to Steelhead Productions Chief Design Officer, Mr. Tom Frisbee.
Thank you, Andrew. You always really make us shine. Yeah, we like to say that Andrew is sort of our Richard Dawson of the exhibit industry, and or maybe in more contemporary terms, maybe Drew Carey. You're sort of a combo platter of both, but we do appreciate it. We love your energy, so thanks. For those of you who have looked at some of our other sessions, in the past we did Take Me Away. We also did a virtual playground, which was all about the new virtual world that we're living in. Today, we're talking sensory deprivation. We'll also be looking at the vending machine, which is this is on Thursday, and then next Tuesday, we'll have many magical moments. The vending machine is all about sort of downsizing to create these sort of encapsulated, smaller messaging opportunities between you and your customer. The mini magical moments is all about how do we create this sort of really magical impression. So we're thrilled that you're here with us. Again, as Andrew said, we're going to be talking macro and micro trends. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So I want to make sure that, when you signed up for this, that you had a real understanding of what we're talking about. This webinar is not about float tanks, although I have experienced them. They're absolutely spectacular, but it's about much, much more than that. And to the next slide, this is really about focus, right? It's about targeting key emotive triggers that are embedded in our senses with the intent to drive customers to do business with us. So, sensory deprivation is really designed to eliminate distraction. So all of that said, in short terms, right, we need to be also judicious in how we use sensory deprivation. Sensory deprivation can be a lot more than just depriving of one senses. Of one of the senses can also be an escalation of others. All that said, my name is Tom Frisbee. As Andrew said, I have the good fortune of being in this industry for 25 plus years. We all certainly know that the industry is changing a great deal, and we're here to embrace that change with you. Some remarkable things are going to happen as a result of what's going on in the world today. Certainly COVID has changed our world, and we're seeing that change immediately. So we want to be very much aware of the trends that will affect those changes moving forward. And I have the most amazing, remarkable team with me today. And let me go ahead and introduce them to you, both Alex and Angela.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom, for that setup. And yeah, I have the great fortune of being a senior designer as part of this awesome team of creative ninjas. We've kind of coined the phrase creative ninjas and design warriors. And it's, yeah, I think the rest of the team really certainly does live up to that, which I'm really fortunate to be a part of that. And I'm also somewhat of a design and engagement nerd, and I think that's going to become apparent as we move through these examples because, you know, one thing that we really love doing in this team is really honing in on different ways in which to engage with our customers. So yeah, we love really studying that and really implementing it as well. And it's just a bit about me as well. I do have 9+ years of trade show industry experience, both in Australia, where I was born and raised, and here in the USA, here in Las Vegas, in fact, for the last 5 years. And, you know, as mentioned, you know, I really do love talking about really great ideas that we can learn from the past and how we can also move forward for a brighter tomorrow. But just a fun fact, now we're going to be talking about some senses today, the 5 basic senses, one of which is taste. And on behalf of Australia, I would like to apologize for the creation of Vegemite. It does nothing for the sense of taste whatsoever. So I just want to point that out, that even as an Australian, I'm certainly not a fan of Vegemite.
So those of you that have ever had poi in Hawaii, it's about the same consistency. It is just nasty, and you're right. Yeah. It's a disaster.
Yeah. So we'll be exploring much better options for the sense of taste today. So.
Right.
Hey guys, my name is Angela. I'm an event designer here at Steelhead. And so, you know, previously I've shared with you guys that I studied exhibits and events at Bemidji State University. So grateful for that experience and being able to develop my passion, which is design and trends and creating immersive experiences that really evoke thoughts and connection and help brands communicate to their customers. So one of my fun facts is, you know, I love graphics and I'm kind of a graphic diva, but another one that I want to share with you this week is there's a little to no chance that you'll ever see me without lipstick. It's just my favorite. I love it. It makes me just sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, I need to just put on some lipstick and then I'm just ready to go. So it's my jam.
There we go. There we go. Thank you, Angela, and thank you, Alex. I'm thrilled to have you guys with us today. So that said, yeah, I think one of my favorite quotes when we're talking about the magic and talking about the senses is from Yeats, and it's, "The world is full of magic things, right? Patiently waiting for our senses to grow sharper." And we really have to be right there for that. We have to make sure that we're enhancing our senses for our customers. So let's keep moving on. So I'm sure there are a lot of questions around what is sensory deprivation, right? And we want to call attention to the fact that this program is specifically an optimistic program. It's about the evolution as we move past this COVID scenario. So you're going to see a lot of examples that you're going to immediately say, well, I can't do that today. Well, we are living in optimism in this presentation, and we are looking forward to the world opening back up and really connecting with all of our senses. So just as a point of clarification, sensory deprivation is not just a minimization of a single sense. So basically, what it is sensory elevation, right? It's the enhancement of all of our other senses as a result of pulling back just a little bit in some areas. So in this world of COVID, we're already sort of deprived of several of the primary senses, correct? So if you think about it, the first and foremost is our sense of touch, right? Our ability to be face to face and to embrace one another, to hug one another, to exchange with one another, right? In addition, we're also deprived of our sense of smell. So, you know, in reality, our senses are very, very much starving right now. We're starving for a holistic experience with our customers and with each other as human beings. So let's go through a couple of just quick highlights before we get into the examples. So certainly sight is our most dominant of all of our senses, right? And if we look at this new digital world that we're living in right now, you know, we're fighting virtual fatigue, right? We're basically overwhelmed. That said, also the second most, important sense that we have is our sense of hearing, right? The same thing is happening right now. It's just a sense of overwhelm in terms of what we hear. It's a cornucopia of sounds. So, as we move forward to the next slide, we talk about, as I already mentioned, right, our sense of smell. Just ask yourself, when was the last time you went to a fragrance counter and actually got to smell, one of your favorite fragrance lines with whatever their new scent might be. So, and if you think about our sense of smell, right, it's such an important sense. Why? Because it's our strongest memory sense. In other words, we remember what we smell longer than anything else. And I just call attention to any of you here in the audience, right? If you will recall right now, what was the scent, the fragrance of the very first person that you fell in love with, right? We are always anchored by our sense of smell. It is our most emotive sense, and it's such a shame that we're really not able to embrace that in this world today. Now, as we move forward, we want to be able to certainly embrace it again. Now, I can't say that I have missed anything in the area of taste as we've been in lockdown. I've got this new COVID body that I would like to change very quickly on the other side of this. But we've all certainly, overwhelmed ourselves with a sense of taste during this period of time, but it's certainly an important sense as we move forward. Now, as I said on the next slide, when we talk about touch, right? The importance of touch, right? The ability to connect not only with the products that we want to see and that we want to purchase and that we want to bring into our lives, but also the people that we deal with, right? The sense of touch is so, so important. As I was saying, when was the last time you walked into the grocery store under the current circumstances, right? And you were tentative about giving somebody that you knew that you hadn't seen in the last 4 months a big hug, right? Or an embrace. So certainly we're deprived of that sense of touch, and we need to move forward. So related to that, it's a brand new reality in terms of the world of touch and expanding upon our sense of touch. So we have to be very, very much aware of that as we move forward. So basically, we live in a new reality, and what do we have to do as things have changed, right? Well, we have to basically alter the input, right? And what do I mean by that? So as marketing professionals, we have to alter the input shift and activate emotive connections using our senses. And we've got to be really intelligent about that. First of all, we have to be aware of the risk as we move forward into the other side of this COVID situation, right? We've got to do it in different ways, certainly in safe ways, but most importantly, in emotive ways. We've got to really connect emotionally with our customers, connecting our customers with our brand, with our products, with our culture. So all of that said, what you're going to see in the following slides that will be presented brilliantly by Angela and Alex, are very optimistic, sort of an optimistic perspective of the other side of this. Every one of the examples that you will see can be, managed differently to the COVID situation. They can be downsized or done a little bit differently, but we want you to look at these examples as an optimistic perspective of the future. So that said, I'm going to leave the content part of this presentation with both Alex and Angela. Thanks so much for being here, everybody.
Thank you so much, Tom, for that. So yeah, leading on from exactly what Tom was just saying, I mean, we do need to alter the input, and the way that which we do that, and the reason why we do that, I'm sorry, is to really maximize and create sensory elevation. And so, this example that you're seeing right now is of, blindfolded wine tasting, which I think we can all be familiar with, with regards to taste testing and so on. And we'll see some great examples of creative spins on that whole concept. But, the intent is to obviously minimize the input from the eyes, because obviously a lot of decision making when it pertains to branding is based on the visuals. So most people purchase wine based on the design of the label, whereas the reality, the quality of the product is based on the taste. And so we want to make sure that we can alter the input to make sure that we are getting the right connection emotionally, and be informed about the products that we are trying to market right now. And so obviously, as pointed out, the most dominant of all the senses that Tom pointed out was sight, and it's how we perceive the world around us in every facet of our lives. We're very dependent on our site. So we need to make sure that we can inject more creativity into our marketing experiences, so that way we can design beyond vision. So, you know, and many brands do tend to forget to incorporate aspects of the other senses. And so we want to make sure that we can provide and inform you today of some other ways in which you can consider incorporating the other senses into your marketing. And at the same time, you know, for those of us who know anyone who is visually impaired, we know that, you know, with that sense taken away, you are relying on the tactile surfaces around you. And so we want to make sure that when we are considering designing beyond vision, we are really incorporating some tactile experiences as well. So before we dive right into all the examples, we're going to talk about a quick concept called sensory branding. And that's really the whole objective of today, is to really find ways to emotionally connect with your customers on a new level, you know, so to make sure that you can inject sensory cues where your brands can attach their memory to your brand. And so we want to share a couple of statistics with you that may help inform this concept. So the first of which is emotionally connected customers are 52% more valuable to a brand than those who are just simply satisfied. So that was a Harvard Business Review statistic. So as mentioned, you know, the intent here is to emotionally connect with our customers, so that way they can walk away with an experience beyond just seeing you know, an impressive visual, which, you know, as we know, is the most tough sense to really you know, be competitive within, because there is so much competition that you're surrounded by in this digital world that we live in. This next statistic is 75% of all day-to-day emotions are generated by what we smell. As pointed out earlier, that is the most emotionally connected sense that we have. So we're going to explore some concepts that really play with that sense of smell, and you know, in the sense of fragrances and other ways in which you can really create a sensory experience. And so let's just do a quick recap of all the examples that we're going to show today. We do have quite a lot. So I'll go through the first half, and then Angela will walk you through just the overview of the second half as well. So the first one that we're going to look at is dining in the dark. So really playing on that concept that we saw earlier of, you know, blindfolded wine tasting, but really this is a whole different kind of approach to that concept. Ultra top secret, which I'm not going to share with you right now because it's a secret. And then the next one is going to be a Billboard scent dispenser, and which is a really creative way to literally design beyond vision. And then House of Hyundai, they literally created a really interesting showroom to showcase how the 5 basic senses can be elevated and be connected and tied to innovation. And also Gin Sensory Train, which is an award-winning, you know, marketing experience in the UK that really, you know, brought a multi-sensory kind of experience to the fore, and was really able to engage in a multitude of different ways. And then the silent treatment, which is a really clever and ingenious way of getting people to opt in and connect with your products. And then live Pictionary. So a really awesome way to really create a fun experience with actually quite a minimal footprint. And so with that, I'll pass it over to Angela, who will cover the next set, and then we'll dive right in.
So after live Pictionary, we're going to look at the scent Airbus. And this is a great way of incorporating scents and how they impact our consumer behavior. Then we'll look at sense of the city that is encouraging travel through scent. And then a senses installation and the seated catalog of feelings, which is a museum exhibition by Cooper Hewitt. After that, we'll look at the flavor radio, the Glade Popup, and lastly, the Blindfolded Foosball. So stay tuned for that one.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. We've saved certainly the most fun one for last, so we're looking forward to that. But without further ado, we'll jump right into our examples here. And the first one starts off right here in Steelhead's hometown of Las Vegas. So this is actually a dining venue called Blackout Dining in the Dark. So as you can see, they are very much, having a dining experience in the dark. Now, we obviously know, as Tom pointed out, in our new reality, it goes without saying that there will be certain evolutions around this concept. But, essentially, the whole point of this, experience is to remove and deprive you of the sense of sight, so that way your other senses of taste, and also, your coordination with your touch is certainly going to be more elevated. And obviously, your experience of smelling the food, which is deeply connected with your sense of taste. But essentially, the guests are actually guided through, at the very beginning, they're explained the whole protocol of the experience that they're about to walk into, and the actual servers are equipped with night vision goggles, so that way they have the ability to maneuver around the space with vision, obviously to make sure that the coordination is held intact. But I'm not sure if any of you have ever had an experience like this, but it really does obviously elevate the taste buds, in a way that you are not going to be visually informed of, the visuals of the food. So the input has certainly shifted around. So if ever any of you do come back to Las Vegas sometime soon, obviously, hopefully when all of this new reality that we have has kind of, shifted in a way that we can actually have dining experiences, maybe we can make a suggestion for you to try it out. And so the next one that we have for you today is ultra top secret. So what you're actually seeing is a structure that was created at CES, and you would never guess that this is actually a beauty brand, Ferrero. So basically, they went all in on this PR stunt, really, in terms of promoting and launching their new product, which was a UFO face mask. So essentially, the whole point of having a sensory deprivation experience, which is essentially the guests which are blindfolded as they make their way through, it really is simulating a kind of experience of what going to Area 51 would be like. So essentially, they really had a real PR team to really create the logistics around this. They had like what appeared to be guards standing at either end to really create that element of mystery here, because that's the whole point, is to really create the whole mysterious what's going on, and almost create a somewhat of a level of chaos at the very beginning. But as you walk through that experience, you're obviously hearing a lot of different things going on as you're blindfolded. So your sense of hearing is certainly going to be elevated as that's all you have to go off at this point. And then obviously at the very end of the experience, your blindfold is taken off, and then the reveal of the actual face mask device titled UFO is revealed. And so they actually sent up these media kits to really create that element of mystery. So, and they titled this as Alien Skincare Technology. So really a really bold marketing strategy around this. So certainly taking it to the extreme for sure. And so the next one that we have for you is Billboard Scent Dispenser. So this is actually an installation by Hugo Boss in Budapest in Hungary. So what they're able to do is create these billboards which have, as you can see here, built in these openings that have samplers for their fragrances, for like one for him and one for her. And so they're able to provide openings within the actual billboard where you can actually walk up to it and sample the actual fragrance. And so it's a really genius way to actually have you walk away with the scent and, keeping that experience with you as you go on about your day. So this was actually set up in a bus shelter and also in a shopping mall. So really kind of, so there's no actual senses deprived here, just to point out. And you'll notice for every one of these examples that we show, we are kind of giving an indicator as to what sense has been elevated and what sense has been deprived. So in this case, they haven't deprived any particular sense to elevate one over the other. But as we pointed out, there's going to be various examples that use sensory deprivation, some that just hone in on one particular sense, and then some that actually kind of target the different senses individually in some really creative ways. So just wanted to preface that as we move through this as well. So this one's really cool. So by Korean car manufacturer Hyundai, they created what they called a sensory journey, in Soho, London. So basically, the intent here was to really educate their guests on the future of driving and their innovation around the 5 senses. So within this showroom experience, there are 5 separate engagement zones focusing on how the emotional state of the driving experience is elevated by each sense. So the most notable station, as you can see here, is the taste zone, and which is essentially a 3D printed sweets station. So they basically coined it candy mechanics, which they basically produce a customized 3D candy of their guest's face with the symbolic meaning of you being able to have a customized driving experience. So there's some symbolism going on here, and the smell station actually includes different samples of air fresheners in their car with a storytelling element built in. Again, with the purpose of showcasing how the sense of smell can be customized to you. So the whole point is innovation and customization. And so they're targeting the senses individually to really drive that narrative. And the last notable sense that they honed in on was touch, which is a station showcasing the range of textiles used in their vehicles. Again, to point to the common narrative of being able to customize that experience based on what tactile surfaces really make for a really smooth journey. So the last one that you just saw was a multi-sensory experience, and as is this one as well, which was actually an award-winning experience that was done by Bombay Gin Sapphire. So they called it the Grand Journey. So every single sense was targeted simultaneously. So the whole point of this particular experience was it was a stationary train activated where it takes them on an immersive tasting experience, simulating a journey through 10 botanical locations from around the world with the intent to educate them on how these 10 botanical locations influence the flavors of their gin. So they actually had Michelin star chefs and mixologists come in, and they were invited to create exquisite food and drinks influenced by these botanicals. And so the sensory journey was much more than just the tasting component. You know, as you can see, it was a very tactile virtual train, you know, where they really make the simulation of the travel journey as real as they possibly can. So, you know, particularly with all the audio and visuals that are integrated here, I know that you can't particularly hear the audio, but there's a lot of you know, sensory activators going on in here. They really make the stimulation of all the senses on all fronts and just making it a cut above from beginning to end. And so, you know, this provided stellar results for them, you know, to really, you know, speak to the sensory branding that we were talking about earlier. You know, it provided them with the ability to have 41% of the attendees who went through this journey, they purchased a bottle after their experience, and 81% you know, of them shared their experience online, obviously using their phones, and then that was able to achieve an outreach collectively of 499 million. So not to mention they won multiple awards for this journey as well. So before we move on, you know, the question is, how can this type of experience be introduced into our world of trade shows and build in a type of experience where you're able to simulate a sensory experience inside of an environment in a trade show? So the next one is going to be the silent treatment. So this is really, really genius, actually, because what they're able to do here, like what you're seeing right now, is essentially a concert in a box. So it's a soundproof box where the only way that you can actually hear the audio is if you opt in with your email to actually get the headset, the Ultra Focus 8000, which is essentially the product that they're trying to showcase anyway. So they're getting email opt-ins, and also they're getting a showcase of their product. All the while they're getting exclusive entertainment. So basically, once you've made that decision to opt in, you all of a sudden get this exclusive, really great jazz concert where everyone else who's passing by really only get the visuals of that, and they're deprived of the audio to that as well. So really strategic marketing on how to really get people to engage with your products. And at this point, I'm actually going to hand it over to Angela, who will take us through the other experiences.
Okay, so this example that we're going to look at next is live Pictionary. So the toy maker Mattel, they minimized the sense of hearing and elevated the sense of sight by transforming what looks to be a regular poster a regular poster ad on a directional mall kiosk, and they turned it into a interactive game where the passerbyers were invited to play a game of Pictionary with the live avatar that's on the other side. Now, this really hones in on the sense of sight, because the game does not begin until the person or until the guest notices that, oh, that is not a static ad, that's actually a live person. When they notice, then they're invited to play a game of Pictionary. And win, or if they win, they are met with a giant teddy bear, a marching band, and an array of different Mattel board games to take home. I think that what is so genius about this is it's something that really, it turns an ordinary day at the mall into something that is unexpected and extremely memorable. I can't imagine playing or finding out that what looks to be a poster is actually something that's interactive. And, you know, as you're playing with him, we can't hear him, you know, so we're really only interacting from visual cues. So you can see now that the attendee has won the game, and they're bringing out the different board games and a giant teddy bear, and there's this large applause. So this really helped Mattel re-spark the Pictionary craze and get people re-excited about the game in a memorable and unique way. All right, next we're gonna look at the Scent Air bus. So Scent Air is a commercial scent provider. So they work with a variety of different brands and companies, but you know, some examples, they work with Westin Hotels and Mandalay Bay. So the smells that you get when you enter in are produced by them. Now, to help attendees understand what they do and how they do it, they decided to elevate the sense of smell and retrofit a 1967 VW bus. Now, on the top image, you can see that they've replaced the touchscreens, or they've replaced the windows with touchscreens that allowed the attendee to come up, explore the different scents that they have and how you can customize them, and you know, really just get to explore and start to understand the product. Now, on the bottom images, you can see that we've got a different look. So every time they went to a different show, they would match the outside of the bus to the company's brand campaign. Now, the one on the bottom, you can see it's more of a traditional Volkswagen bus, you know, just a nice normal green color and their logo. And then on the right one, there's this really groovy, fun illustration that throws me back to the 70s. Now, to take this a step further, Scent Air wanted to, you know, use the sense of smell to encourage people to come into their space, to draw them off of the trade show floor. So what scent do you think they pumped into their space? Yes, if you're thinking marijuana, you are correct. So now hear me out. Now hear me out. Imagine you're walking on the trade show floor and all of a sudden you smell weed. Like that would just be the funniest and a weirdest sensation to experience, right? But it is an extremely bold and funny way to get people into your space and interacting with your brand. Once they were inside the space, they were allowed to, or they were invited to come into the van, and then they're able to choose their own scent and sit down, relax, and explore and talk with a Scent Air representative. All right, our next one that we're going to be looking at also has to do with scent. So Thalys is a French travel agency, and they wanted to use the sense of smell to not recall memories that we've had or things that we've done or places that we've been, but to encourage people to travel somewhere new in Europe. So what they did was they combined, or they took 752 tubes, and there was 16 unique fragrances, all coming from cities in Europe: Paris, Amsterdam, Brussels, and Copenhagen. So they then arranged these tubes into this beautiful art installation, and they have color-coded them with the maps of the cities. So you're able to walk into the space and you can smell all of the different ones. For example, a real French breakfast is one of the scents. And this is illustrating the aroma of a buttered croissant in a Parisian cafe. And then there was more poetic ones, more personal ones, moments after mass. We have a blended scent of the Cologne Cathedral. So not only are they able to really follow their nose and travel somewhere new, they are then invited to talk with a phallus representative and potentially book travel or schedule a meeting or a time to talk about booking travel with them further. All right, so the next one that we're going to be looking at is the senses installation. So this was designed, or this was a museum experience designed by Cooper Hewitt called Design Beyond Vision. Now this was really to explore the senses and how they can be expanded and how they really affect and can help us solve problems and improve just every day-to-day life and how they help us connect. So there was multiple different areas of the exhibition for each sense. But the one that we're going to look at today is the seated catalog of feelings. So Alex, yep, there we go. We're on this one. All right, so the seated catalog of feelings. This really used a sensory shift. So what they did in this area to focus and maximize the sense of touch and the sense of sound and minimize the sense of sight. They use text and vibration in the chair to conjure up these sensations, around 100 different ones. Now, some of these sensations were normal, like a pencil being shaved. But then there was some more crazy ones, like falling backwards into a tub of Jell-O. So how this worked is when you sat down on the chair, you would put the headphones on, and there would be sounds and, illustrating the thing that's happening, falling back in a tub of Jell-O, right? But then there was also vibrations being sent in through the chair. So this really is a great example of a sensory shift, right? This created an experience using a different scent than using a different sense than expected. And it surprises the consumer, and it also holds their attention. I think this is just a really fun way to mix it up, and it has something that is a small footprint. All right, our next one is fun. This is flavor radio. So Dunkin' minimized the sense of sight and the sense of taste by creating a campaign that encouraged people to drink more of their coffee. So in the city of South Korea, or in the country of South Korea, Seoul is the capital, right? And this has been nicknamed the city of coffee. So Dunkin' felt like they were only being perceived as a donut shop, and they wanted to drive the sales of coffee. So because most commuters, they go to work using public transportation, each bus around the city was given an automatic air freshener. Now, this was not a normal air freshener. This was a specific one that would only emit the scent of freshly brewed Dunkin' coffee when the Dunkin' Donuts song played on the radio. So in combination with that, they used strategic timing and advertisement placement to encourage people to get into their stores and buy coffee. When the bus would pull over, they would get out, and the bus stop was branded in Dunkin' Donuts, and then there would be a shop not more than a block away. Now, this is just, I think, a great example of subliminally activating senses. I think that naturally, when you're thinking about coffee or you're smelling coffee, it's because you're in a coffee shop and you're getting that. So they've taken away that experience and subliminally encouraged you to come into the store, and this increased their coffee sales by 29%. All right, so the next one that we're going to look at is the Glade Popup. So Glade really elevated the sense of sight and the sense of smell because they wanted to change the brand perception that they had. So how did they do this? They hosted a pop-up shop in Manhattan, and they wanted to prove that Glade scent evokes emotion. So they also wanted to show that they were more than just, an air freshener that you'd get at the supermarket, right? This is, they're great scents that can really transform a room and evoke emotion. So they created 5 different experiential rooms, and each room was filled with the scent of a Glade fragrance, and they were created to give off different interpretations, right? So each room, in Anticipation, for example, you know, it made you feel like you were in a snow globe, and there was snow falling, and it was a fresh scent of snow and pine trees. So not only did it make you feel like you were in a snow globe, this was also right before Christmas. So this helped people anticipate and get excited about the upcoming holidays. So the next, and as we know, scent, like Tom and both Alex have mentioned, is our most emotive sense, right? That's how we connect and how we recall things. So they allowed each user to go into their room and interpret this for themselves, but then create an emotional connection to help leave an impression and to change the mind share and get people talking about Glade. After the experience, they were also able to buy the products, which is a perfect continuation of the experience, because this was something that was right before Christmas. So they're able to buy different candles as gifts for their friends and loved ones. Okay, so ending on a light note, I just love this one. So this is full on deprivation of sight, as we can see, right? This is Heidi Klum on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. And let me just say, we don't have the sound playing, but you should really just go and listen to it because it is hilarious.
See Heidi at another level, don't you?
Yeah, I know Tom said he wouldn't want to be on Jimmy's side. But what this did is it took something that really requires a lot of hand-eye coordination, and it made this really entertaining and hilarious competitive experience that just can bring the power of play in. It can bring joy in and excitement and happiness in a fun and light way.
Someone could get hurt.
For real.
So anyway, as we close up, before we get into questions, we get a couple of things that we really want to remind you of, right? So the objective of sensory deprivation experience is really sensory elevation, right? If we deprive one of the senses, right, we can elevate all of the others and really develop a great branding experience for your attendee. You know, we want them to have that sort of unconscious memory of whatever experience they have with you. I love the example from Glade. I actually went to a similar experience in Toronto, as I was saying in the notes earlier. I'll never forget that because it anchored me. There was a certain signature scent that just, meant a lot to me. It smelled like something from the past, a fond memory. And those are the kind of things that we really want to do for our customers. I know I've told this story before. I had a customer years ago that had to relaunch their product. And I mentioned this in the notes. And so it was a relaunch of a rather controversial product. So what we did in order to make people feel comfortable and at ease inside the environment was because it was a fresh start, we infused the whole environment with the scent of fresh cut grass. It's like, there's nothing like, going down a country road, in spring and smelling that first, cut grass experience, right? So we've got to be thinking this way in order to connect with our customers. I know in that experience where we did a relaunch with the grass, it was incredibly, memorable, and it was talked about on the show floor everywhere. So we want to go past, the vision and the traditional vision and what we understand of how we use our senses today. It's certainly going to be different. We know that. We want to be really intelligent about how we use them. So all of that said, thank you so much for participating in this part. We want to open it up to questions, and let's see what we've got. Andrew, I'll let you field those for us.
Thank you. We've got quite a few goodies that have come through. And before we jump into that, let me very quickly remind everyone that the next session, the vending machine, will be coming up at the same time this Thursday. Can't wait to see you back here for that. So now to jump into those questions. And again, as you have questions, please do pop them in the Q&A button in the bottom center of your screen. So Deborah asks I think the question we should go to first. These are great examples of the use of sensory experiences in live or in-person situations, what ideas and recommendations do you have for incorporating them perhaps into a virtual conference?
Deborah, I don't know if you were able to participate in the virtual presentation that we did last week. It was Thursday, but we showed you an example of a fragrance company that was doing, virtual sales, right? And and how challenging it must be, right, as a fragrance company to sell their product when people can't smell it. So as part of their pre-event piece, they sent out a little package where you could actually learn to mix your own personal scent. And then they did an online tutorial that went live, and they would teach you how to do so. So you're absolutely, it's a brilliant question, right? And certainly in this world that we face today. So it's really a combination of old world marketing methodology, and that's sometimes a mailer, sometimes a touch point that's different than our virtual piece that really keeps us connected. Another example is, for instance, for some of our end of the week parties, right, where we do a cocktail party at the end of the week and we do it virtually online. Whether you're sending a coupon to go pick up a bottle of wine or whatever that might be, making sure that you're connecting with sort of that old world marketing methodology is very helpful.
Thank you. And then kind of continuing down that line, one of the questions that we got was, are there some examples that perhaps could be sent by mail or that could be sent directly to a person they could experience individually, so it doesn't need to be in an in-person environment? Have you heard of any examples like that?
Team, I haven't had anything specific as of late. Alex or Angela, have you had anything specific that you could share of late?
Nothing that I've seen that's sent by mail, but I think certainly some of the examples can lend themselves to that opportunity for sure. I mean, the Billboard scent dispenser that we saw, obviously that is obviously more of an in-person type of experience and engagement, but certainly I know that mailing out fragrances, just like Tom was referring to in the pre-event mailer, with fragrances, is certainly something that can be done.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there are other products as well that can be facilitated.
And Alex, in terms of elevation of a sense, I know we're in current discussions with another company as we're developing a virtual piece for them, where they've asked us to include a VR piece as part of the mailer. So certainly that's another thing that could be used. Of course, these are little simple cardboard pieces, and/or it can be elevated to a vastly different price point, subject to well vetting that audience. So those are the kind of things that certainly can be done in a virtual world, and there's just infinite products that we could certainly look at. But you've got your old world methodology with mix your own scent, and then you have the new VR technology, and there's so many ways that you can scale that as well. So
yeah, I love that. And also I've got another addition on the mailer component as well. And I think this specific one with Candy Mechanics was a really great example of really being able to customize, a suite, that you can actually give to someone who's there in person. Obviously that scans their face, but I mean, could that be based on a photo that they submit, that where you actually get your own customized piece of chocolate, which actually is essentially your face? So there's great possibilities around that too, I believe.
Right.
Alex, to add on to that, then I think one way to incorporate that into a digital or virtual experience then would, sending them that sweet treat, whatever, and then as they navigate through the virtual space, encouraging them to open it at that touch point. So, if it was the sense of taste, when they get to that digital touch point, then you're like, okay, we've sent you something in the mail and we want you to open it now. Something like that, where you're kind of, it's almost acting as though you are there encouraging them.
Absolutely.
Right. Terry asked a great question about the example going back to Mattel with the Pictionary. Do you happen to know how many cities that played in, how long that was active, or how many plays in total were used? And whether or not you have the answer to that specifically, kind of the bigger question, I think, that might serve our audience better as well. Though, Terry, thanks for that question. It is a good one. Can you talk to us about some of the ways we can measure success and measure engagement with these ways to engage the senses?
Obviously, we'll rely heavily in the current situation on QR codes and ways of tracking that. In other words, it's always a give-get. Andrew. And so it's a really great question. Always get great questions from Terry. But it's a give-get scenario. So we will give you something if you give us something. So you give us valuable information, and we'll give you that opportunity, to engage. And as a result, we're able to track that. So, and a lot of the technology that we're proposing, for instance, if you saw the virtual piece, and Alex can speak a little bit to that, there's a lot of built-in tracking into that, goes directly to Salesforce, Marketo, whatever that might be. So, yeah. Alex, you want to speak a little bit to that real quickly?
Yeah, I think for the most part, you covered it. I mean, there's ways in which we can, plug into, lead tracking technology and softwares that can actually capture that. And I think you touched on some of those already, Tom, with, HubSpot being our platform of choice around that.
Right.
With the way that we track exactly the movements around a virtual space, and also just the engagement and metrics, around engaging in a gamification component like that.
Right.
Let me just address like a couple of specifics of Terry's question. So this was deployed in a mall in Canada, and over a few days. So I think it was a weekend that they had, when there's the most mall traffic. Now the article and where I, got the information, it did not share how many touches or how many plays or activations were there were, but as Tom and Alex said, there's multiple different ways to include and incorporate that lead tracking element.
Yep.
Along the same lines of specifics, a question came up of going back to Sense the City. Do you know if a PR or ad agency was brought in to help with that? And let me sort of expand that question as well to say, do you know of any resources that perhaps our audience could use to create sense, knowing that it's such a powerful way to engage an audience?
Well, first of all, Scent Air, which was one of the examples that we shared with you, they do provide and create unique scents for different brands. For instance, Lucky Brand's jeans. If you go into any mall for Lucky Brand's, you walk in and that cedar smell is a signature scent for Lucky Brands. Neiman Marcus has their own signature scent. So yes, they do, and Scent Air is the #1 producer in the United States for that. So if that answered that part of the question. And then in terms of customizing for each city, that was the question?
I think he was also asking, sort of both parts. He was asking, was a PR or ad agency used? And then you really largely answered the other part of the question of, what are some resources for building a scent?
Certainly. And Angela, you can speak to the second part. I know this is part of your research project, so.
Yeah. So they did partner with an ad agency. So they kind of came up with the idea. They wanted to encourage people to travel, using their, using Phallus. They wanted to encourage people to travel different areas in Europe. So then they had scientists and working with different people in those cities to pick, very significant scents that determined or depicted what a visit to Paris would be, for example. And then they combined them in a lab and made 16 specific ones.
And then for Amsterdam, it was weed, right, Angela? It had to be weed for.
Actually, Amsterdam was latex, and that would be the Erotic Museum.
Oh, dear God.
Clarification's sake, yeah.
I walked into that.
Brilliant. Brilliant. If you weren't sold on your marketing career before, you certainly are now when you get to experience the scent of latex, experience Amsterdam.
So
This is really helpful information that we've got, genuinely, because that power of scent and highlighting and turning down senses is such an engaging way to get the audience going. One of the questions that came through is, you've shown some great examples of how to do this on a larger scale. And Tom, you spoke to this a little earlier. Can you share some more examples on a smaller scale of what perhaps our audience can do?
Scalability is certainly important. And I think, Andrew, you and I have participated in actually using scent technologies to connect with our customers. I mean, this goes years back for you and I. And developing, for instance, just the guessing game of, guess what scent this is. Remember when we did the packaging around that, and the live virtual feed that we got as a result of it. Those kind of things can be, engaging. It's that combination of old old world with new, especially in the category of scent. Scent can also be used in much smaller areas as well. You do have to be judicious and careful with scent because some people are hypersensitive to certain smells, so you have to be, cautious. And great companies like Scentair have already done the studies around what to avoid and what not, and what you can easily put out there in certain environments. They also have a categories of scent based on what kind of emotion do you want to evoke as a result of that scent. So they've already done the studies around that, and all of that's available. So, I mean, it's a multi-million-dollar business now. You walk into every great brand and they're going to have their own signature scent, and it is scalable. I mean, if you and I can afford to put it in one of our marketing plans, Andrew, it is affordable. So as you recall, but great question.
I want to thank the panel for some fantastic content that you shared with us today, and remind everyone that we will be back here at the same time on Thursday for the vending machine, which I'm personally very excited to get talked through. So please do watch out for for an email that will be coming into your inbox. We'll be following up with you after this. It's a great way to connect with our panel. You can book some time with Tom and his team to talk through ways that you can maybe include some of the tactics that you've learned about today into your marketing scheme, and of course, talk about so much more beyond that. I want to thank Tom, Alex, and Angela for being here. Liz, thank you for running the program on the technical side for us. And thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Andrew Childers over at Steelhead Productions, and we will see you again for the vending machine at the same time on Thursday.
Bye, guys. Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.